Hey everyone, this is John Puritz. Welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. This show is dedicated to each of us being better in all areas of our lives, mentally, spiritually, physically, and relationally. We want to help you be a better you because when you man up already, the world around you is greatly impacted. Here on the podcast, we don't believe you're an accident. We believe each of us is created for purpose, and this show is dedicated to helping you discover and live out that purpose. Again, welcome to the show, and let's check out another great episode. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Man Up Already podcast. As always, super excited to have you here, and happy 2026. Cannot believe another year, right? Another year of growth, another year of adventure, another year of whatever it is that your intention is to have in the coming year. So super pumped to have you here. Excited for our guest today. I want to introduce him, and we're going to bring him up into the show very shortly. But our guest today is Frank Sell. Frank is the founder of Get Shit Done Coffee. Now, I have not ever heard of Get Shit Done Coffee, but the Man Up Already podcast already loves that title. It's so in alignment with what we're doing here. I'm excited to have him on here. But he grew up hearing the usual advice. A lot that we talk about here is, get good grades, go to school, get a good job. But he knew that path wasn't for him. School didn't make a lot of sense. So he learned to trade. And I love this, with nothing but $100 and a VHS tape, which shows you maybe he's closer to my age than maybe I thought. And a drive towards freedom. Frank quit his job, hit the pavement, learning a new trade. And as he puts it, beat the streets so hard, he swears he'll get a bill for the potholes. Super pumped to have him on the podcast today. Today, that same attitude drives Get Shit Done Coffee, built for those who want more out of life and are willing to do the work for it. Frank's journey is simple but powerful. If he can do it, so can you. All you need is heart, grit, and the will to get shit done. I am so excited to have Frank on the podcast and hear his story and the message for us today. All right, Frank, so happy you are here, man. What an honor.
Yeah, I'm ready to get shit done.
So let's start there, right? Like, I'm sure you get this all the time. And it's funny too, because we were just talking a little bit, right? On when I created Man Up Already, but the original title was, man the F up, like with the word, right? But I didn't go there, right?
Yeah.
But you went there. So tell me about Get Shit Done. Like, how did that come about? Like the title, your mission. Let's start there.
Yeah. So it's really funny because, I'll tell a little story about the name of the product. It's Get Shit Done Coffee. And we were talking before we started this podcast, about being followers of Christ, being Christians, masculine men. And so a lot of times, I'll get people to come up and they'll give me the question. They'll say, well, what about that word on there? What do you think God thinks about that? Or, the so-called Christian thing, the way to look at it. And so people ask me, well, what about that? I said, well, normally it's only the people that sit in the front row that ask me anyway. So I just take it with a grain of salt. So it's just paying attention and enjoying the journey and kind of knowing why I'm here. And it's a lot like yourself, number one is to stand up to the boy in the mirror. I say it all the time, it takes a man to stand up to the boy in the mirror, and it's living our life. So I've been self-employed now. This is going on my 24th year of being self-employed. I fix hail damage on cars. That's what the $100 videotape that I bought. I bought a $100 videotape, taught myself a new trade, beat the damn streets so hard, I swear I get a bill for the potholes. That's kind of my business side. So I did just like your intro was talking about, get good grades, get an education, get a trade. So I did that. Valentine's Day, 1994 was the last job that I started. I was 18 years old. I was working for a big corporation. I was a welder, doing all the stuff that my dad, taught me. My dad loves me. He's hopefully going to lead me in the right direction. So I did these things based on the information that he had growing up was the ideal path. And so I started this career 18 years old, had a 30-year retirement program. I was going to retire at 48, full benefits, pension, insurance. I'm like, man, I can do that. That sounds pretty cool. But along the way, my rose-colored glasses were broken. It's about that time, when the government NAFTA went through, and just a whole bunch of different things, and the environment changed. They sold the company, and one of the things they did was they changed retirement. And so it was at that point that I said, I can either accept what they're willing to give me, or I can man up and take, own my sovereignty of my future. And so that's what I did. I had what the world would say was a good job, the benefits. But I looked around, and it's like, okay, this company already changed the deal on me once. So they took away the 30-year retirement program once they got sold, and you had to work till you're 55. And I just kind of looked around, I was like, there's no really healthy 55-year-old welders. And so I say, I just have to take a chance on me. And I bought this videotape because I knew there was other guys out there that were doing this. And the guys that I knew that were doing it weren't necessarily as mechanically inclined as I was, or just didn't work with their hands prior to that. So I knew that I could pick it up. So I just had full confidence, and volunteered for a layoff March of 2003 to start my first business, which was fixing. I live in Kansas, middle of Kansas, and so we get hailstorms, summer storms all the time. And I quit my job and just started hustling. And back then we didn't have the internet the way we do now. So we have the yellow pages,
Right.
You have word of mouth reference. And so I literally just opened Yellow Pages and started looking for places that I could go call on. That's where the Beat the Streets comes from. And I didn't understand the sales process. I didn't intentionally understand it, know it, apply it. So I, have to go out and find out, who do I talk to? When are they going to be here? Find out what the deal is. What happened to the last guy? Did he not show up? Did you not pay him? Who's the bad guy in the picture? So kind of started building that book of business. And then along the way, like we were talking about prior, I had a couple of relationships that didn't work out the way I desired at the time, but I knew that was exactly what I needed to become the man that I am. And so, I was never able to put money aside for investment and retirement. Wasn't really a good steward with the funds. And a lot of that was just the chaos that I was involved with, the relationships. So I started a Facebook page called Home of the Hustle. And that was just me, just like we are right now, me and a couple of buddies doing a podcast because I wanted to start an online brand, marketing, e-commerce, selling stuff on Amazon, something like that. I didn't know what, I didn't know how, but I went out to find who. So I started interviewing people that do marketing and branding, e-commerce, different things like that. Started going out to different events and connecting. And so I kind of built a book of reference of people that knew what they were doing. But by doing it through a format like this, a podcast or a live video, we built an audience that got to know us, like us, and trust us. So we never really had a product to sell through the Facebook page. But we did grow an audience. We did grow connections. And so the first brand that I started was a beard oil. And it was called Baby Beard Club, because at the time, all the beard ads that you see are about fake manhood machismo bullshit. It's skinny pants and a flannel shirt with a beard, and you're a man.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't cut it. And so when I wanted to grow a beard, my partner at the time, she made the beard oil for me, and the first night I used it, I slept really good. So there again, it's going back to paying attention to what God's provided us. Everything's already provided except our vision, our eyes to see it, and the knowledge to apply it.
Right.
So
that's good.
I saw this. What happened? I slept good. Why? It was because of the essential oils. I'm like, well, nobody markets the essential oils, the therapeutic effect. It's all about tobacco, whiskey barrel, something, manly. And so, we created a line of essential beard oils that would help you relax, help you sleep at night. And so I had guys message me that if they held their infant next to their beard with that beard oil, the kid would calm down or go to sleep because of the essential oil aroma. Then we had the inverse of that was one called Get Shit Done. It had peppermint and cedar and a bunch of different things to kind of help you focus and concentrate and wake up. And so where that relates to the Get Shit Done coffee is I was at a networking event in Wichita, Kansas. It's just down the road from me. And I met some guys that had just started a co-packing company or a contract canning company for cold brew coffee. And they also sold coffee beans on the side. And so we become friends. They're cool guys. I think I'm a cool guy. I buy coffee beans from them. They buy some beard oil from me. And one day I have a bag of their coffee sitting on my desk. And I had just got some Get Shit Done stickers made for the Get Shit Done beard oil. And I put a sticker on the bag of coffee and posted it on Facebook. And everybody, because I had this home of the hustle audience, I mean, I had so many comments and messages that, dude, are you selling Get Shit Done coffee? How do I buy it? Well, I put stickers on the 5 bags I had sitting there and sold it to them, called my friends. I said,
That's
hey,
great.
can I sell your coffee as Get Shit Done? They're like, that's what we do.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You know, I want to highlight something because it's such a key principle. I recently joined, the coach. Oh, the coach has a coach, right? Like,
Mhm,
even though we're mentoring others, right? Somebody's mentoring us, and I had joined this community of men. And one of the things that is a tenet is being in action, right?
mhm.
A man on purpose
Yeah,
is centered, right? Like,
right.
men have to be in action and in purpose. And in your story, ours is very similar, right? Like, I was in entrepreneurship in the early 2000s before social media, the yellow pages, showing up, talking to people, right? Very, very, very similar. But I love what you talked about because you, in the end, like, you followed your gut. And one of the things that I talk about a lot on here is God speaks to you through your gut. Like,
Mhm,
that is that intuition, that push, right? You created the Facebook page, you went into action, you started, it's the more you move into action, the more things unfold. But you can't sit there in the mindset that you are in the moment that you're in and try to think about what's possibly going to happen. The only way that unfolds is to get into action. And clearly you did that.
yeah, and that's I mean, ready, fire, aim is kind of my mantra. I tend to just take action and figure it out, but that also it builds my platform because the coffee brand, what I say about it and the beer oil at the same time too, but specifically the coffee, I'm not selling coffee. I'm selling permission to get shit done, permission to take action on an idea. I'm selling inspiration because on every product has the messaging built into it. Like the beat the streets quote is on the can of coffee. One of the favorite quotes of our followers and customers on the side of the coffee, it says, do it scared until you can do it skilled. That just
Mm,
comes from the way I explain stuff, a conversation with a friend of mine. And people really love that, and then every can of coffee has Galatians 5:1 on it. It's for freedoms you've been set free. Therefore, do not let yourself be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. And that slavery is so many things, whether it's a food addiction, porn, alcohol, sports, whatever it is. Your energy is finite. It can't be destroyed. It just can be changed. And
right.
so the brand for me, that's what it is. And the coffee is just a commodity. It's a world class flavor. I mean, we have so many repeat customers because it's a good product. But for me, I'm just selling my story. I'm selling the get shit done lifestyle of what's got me here.
Well, I love it. I mean, it embodies the same thing that man up already is get off your ass and do something, like
Yeah.
it's the same mantra. In my notes, I have, you talk about creating your own damn luck. So let's,
Mhm.
breaking free of victimhood and how to own your future. Maybe let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So this is uh, probably a perspective that a lot of people don't understand, or just the way I think about it. So one reference is a really good book that I've read called Dollars Want Me, because as a
Dollars want me.
yep, uh-huh, dollars want me. Uh, and so we just get too many weak Christians out there that want to be passive and all this stuff. But what this book Dollars Want Me, one major point that I picked up out of that book was that God provided everything, except for my vision, my knowledge. God's my supply, and my supply is abundant, is the line in the book that really stuck out.
Mhm.
So what that means to me is, like we kind of talked about it earlier, is that everything is already provided. The sun, the water, the soil, the people, the ingredients for the product, everything is provided, except it's not assembled in a specific order to create the product. Every, like we were talking about earlier, and we both had relationships that didn't work out the way we desired, but we needed that to become who we are now. So that was provided. We didn't create that spouse or that person. That person was provided for us to either grow us, or the collaboration or whatever. So in my mind, everything is created, and by taking that responsibility and saying, okay, what's my responsibility in this moment? How do I take action? What do I take action on? And trying to pay attention what's in my lane, because there's so many shiny objects out there that we can get distracted for an entire lifetime. So it's kind of figuring out, I say we have two purposes in life. Number one is to figure out your purpose. Number two is to live it every damn day.
Right.
And so when we talk about legacy and how we show up in the world, I have a little bit more pressure than probably the majority of people, because I'm Frank Sell the third. My dad, no, I'm the fourth. My dad's the third. My son is the fifth.
Wow.
And a really cool story that shows the power of your name and how you show up in the world. So my son one day come home from school, got caught stealing something from the teacher. And like we talked about, I don't know if we were live or not, but I like to try and train the heart. And that it comes from talking to a pastor of mine about how the rabbis would teach their students, and how Christ always he talked a lot in questions. And so that's what that's doing, is it's removing my personal ego. There was no ego in Jesus, but he knew by asking the questions, he was a shepherd. He was leading the sheep. He was helping them develop the thinking process instead of handing them the answer. So my son comes home from school, stole something, and normally what would we do? We'd get irate, spanking, yell, timeout, whatever. I just asked him one really simple question, and it's like, what's Papa's name? And he says, well, Papa. I say, no, what's his real name? Frank. And he's like, Frank what? Frank Sell. I said, okay, so what's my name? He says, Frank Sell. What's your name? Frank Sell. I said, okay, so if somebody says that Frank Sell is a thief and a liar, who are they talking about? Papa, you, or me? I mean, like that, he started crying. And so when taking responsibility is being able to sit kind of in peace and look at what was my fault and what is my responsibility in this situation, and in having gratitude for that asshole that showed up, or for that crappy situation that we just went through, having gratitude, because that's meant, God provided that to equip us. He'll teach us whatever way that we need taught. Either by a whisper or by a hammer, we're going to learn.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Number one, I don't think you need to be, and that wasn't your point, but I want to highlight it. You don't have to be a junior or the third or the fourth or the fifth to represent your family's legacy, right? Like, to me, it's your last name, period. Like, I often think, how am I representing the name that was given to me? When people hear that, what do they think? And a key thing for me, it's been the thing, and I love what you talk about with everything happens for a reason, right? God, there are no accidents, right? Like the things happen, but we can't control what happens, but we can control how we react. And I think true freedom really does come in responsibility, because when you take on, it's a key tenet in just being a man, being a biblically based, masculine man. I think responsibility is huge, because there is freedom in responsibility. When you go, what did I own? You then have the ability now to pivot, to change, to grow, right? To use that. When you're playing a victim, you can't, right? Victimhood is isolation, it's stagnation. There's nowhere to go from that except to sit and blame.
Yeah. And what people don't
Right.
realize, it's ego at the end of the day. It's trying to protect themselves. And people are afraid to look foolish or afraid to try because what are people going to say? And that's just been one of my strong suits. Probably growing up with my dad, he's pretty critical, pretty strong. But at the same time, I was by paying attention, and all the answers are there if we're willing to listen. So I just, in conversation, I was talking to my aunt one day, and we were talking about their childhood. And my dad left home at 14 years old because his stepdad used to just beat him all the time. And I thought, growing up, you hear these stories, and like, it's stories. My aunt one day, just out of the blue, just like, yeah, I don't know why dad would come home and he just start whooping all the boys. So my dad left home at 14. He wasn't going to tolerate that. So for him, survival was love, food, a roof over your house, and it's just really cut and dry. There was no namby-pamby, hold my hand kind of stuff.
Right.
So growing up that way, you kind of learn, you don't develop that emotional pattern. And so it kind of helps, I guess I would say, safeguard you in some situations.
And to add on to just all of this, I think it's an innate thing for us to, especially when you're no longer in victimhood, right? When you're taking action, how can I be better? I love what you talked about, how, right, your father, your grandfather, your son, you all share the same name, right? So there's a little bit more inherent, like, how do I represent this name and take it forward? But I think for all of us, men and women, right, how do I continue to grow? I'm very stuck on the Proverbs says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And that inheritance isn't just financial. It's what is the legacy that you've left? What are the values? What are what is the messaging, the faith, the lessons, all that you're talking about? How do I leave a legacy, an inheritance to the generations that come after me? And I think it's our mission and our mandate to continue to do that better than it was for us.
Oh, I 100% agree on that. And it's taking responsibility to equip ourselves with the knowledge and the wisdom and the armor of discernment, so that, especially now, right now, there's so much garbage being thrown our ways just to try and distract us,
Right.
infighting with our neighbors, whatever it is. And so when you have that armor of discernment, then you can lead from the heart, because all that garbage doesn't make its way to your heart. And so it's, people really have to be intentional. And that's a big problem. We have what they call them NPCs nowadays, non-playable characters, people just running on autopilot. They think they don't have the time, or they don't know how. It's easier than ever just to type into YouTube or Google your thought, your question, or chat GPT, and at least get a springboard for your ideas, or to start down the rabbit trail of what books, because there's all the knowledge is out there in books, whether it's the Bible or whether it's books outside of the Bible. It's all that knowledge is out there. So what I used to do is simply, if I would go through a situation where I used to hear it being called, you can either be a victor or a victim, and say, okay, this is what just happened. I kind of believe what this is, my involvement was, and I would just ask Google or look for a book in that, with that description or that question, and look at what come up, and then just go buy the book or buy the audiobook, and start reading or listening to try and fix that problem instead of just being a victim.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said, right? And I mean, and you and I, again, grew up in a generation where we didn't have that, right? So, but sometimes technology is too good in certain respects, right? So all the information's out there, it's readily available, but I think resilience also forces certain questions through experience rather than trying to think of them, right? And
Yeah.
um, you start what I guess is a good springboard to coming from beating the streets so that you got to get charged with the potholes to I can hop, for young men, right, who are in an age where you can just ask AI and it'll tell you.
Mhm.
What have you learned in that journey of being an entrepreneur where technology has changed? What message or what would you tell somebody who's kind of just getting started out, how to not only use the technology, but how to bring that idea of action over thought, just, you know, get shit done, just keep moving. Like, how would you, what messaging would you give a younger guy who's sitting there going, I know I have more purpose, right? Rather than just, go to work and make
Mhm.
a check, et cetera. How would you kind of take the old and the new and guide them?
Yeah. So one thing I noticed, and this is, just like this weekend, I helped my son change the engine in his truck, and it was it. So we started on Friday, and we got quite a bit done Friday, and there was just a few things that kind of held us up. And so on the way home, my son's 20 years old, and so on the way home, he was stressed out. And so I asked him what's going on, what are you stressed about, and he said, well, we didn't get the other engine put back in, or this or that, and so on. And he's like, I'm just stressed. I get stressed easy. And so I think what might help, and kind of what has helped me is you're probably looking at the big picture. You're looking at driving the truck away, having the engine running, when what's only thing that's important right now is what's important now. What can I do now? What can I do next? So you're focused. It's kind of like the story of a journey of 1,000 miles, begins with the first step. And so it's a lot of people, they look at the big picture, and that's where I see guys like you and me versus, say, like an Andy Frisella, or a Myron Gaines, or some of these influencers, or people that are super successful in business to 7, 8, 9 figure earners, is guys like you and me. We're the next step of believability. This, like our coffee brand. If you are on the podcast, you can go to YouTube and look at this. It looks like $1 million brand, but it's a multi-dollar business. It's on its way to making money, 6, 7 figures, but we're not there. So I think that a lot of people, they just get stuck on the big picture, and when really they just need to take action. And you're either going to mess it up or you're going to have a win. Either way, you'll find out what the next step is. After you take some action, and then take it without taking things personally, and say, okay, that didn't work. This is what I learned. This is how I need to adjust and move forward.
And a key piece to that is first off, I've been talking about in this season. I'm coming out of a really life altering, a season of change, right?
Mhm.
And the one message that God was giving me through that whole 2 year journey was be present, be present, be present. Stop thinking about the past. Stop trying
Mhm.
to figure out the future. Right? Be present. And my lessons coming out of that, Frank, is really what you're talking about. Is life is lived right now,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Faith, and the other thing, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is faith is a present moment thing. The
Yeah.
enemy likes to play on the periphery. He likes to remind you of your past or keep you fearful of the future. But
Mhm.
true faith is a present moment thing. God is always saying, trust me right now.
Yeah.
I was literally just reading the story of Exodus, because I read the Bible chronologically every year.
Mhm.
And, here it's sometimes unfathomable. Well, here's the nation of Israel. in the wilderness, and God literally says, I'm not going to take you on the short path. I'm going to take you on the long path because I got to deal with your heart and your head. And he's there in a pillar of fire and a cloud, right? So he's literally manifested right there. He's providing food, and yet in their head, they're still in the past or worried about dying in the future, right? They're just not, they can't even see
Yeah.
the magnitude and the magnificence of what's right in front of them.
Yeah. So again, I've got a great story for that. I think it was about time. I can't remember the time frame, but basically, I felt like I was on my desert journey,
Mm.
and I'll speak to God all the time, and I was just like, man, God, I feel like I'm on the desert journey. And I was in a bookstore one day, and being present and knowing that God is my supply and my supply is abundant. I look over, and there's a book, Leaving the Desert.
Wow.
So of course I had to buy it and read it. And it was I don't know where, A Course in Miracles. It's supposedly, the book of Thomas, Jesus's teachings that was left out of the Bible. But it was just ironic. It's not ironic. It's just the design.
Yeah.
And that's part of what all this noise today is, a distraction to detour us off of our true mission and purpose.
100%. I mean, we could go down that rabbit hole. Well, let's for a little bit, like I when I look at masculinity today, right? Because
Mhm.
you and I are, right, we're both men, we're both believers, and this is the conversation. I'm watching this. I talk about this book quite often. Napoleon Hill, before he wrote Think and Grow Rich, wrote a book called Outwitting the Devil. Are you familiar
Mhm.
with that one?
Oh yeah.
Unbelievable book. But the
Love it.
whole concept of drifting, right? Because
Yeah.
if I can get you to drift, I can take you off your purpose. And we are
Mhm.
seeing that today because of technology. Deterring men who could go and do incredible things. Incredible things. I love what you talked about, right? Our businesses are probably very similar in stages in regard to being on your purpose. Is being on purpose in your home, being on purpose as a husband, as a son, as a friend, as a father, like a man in business, a man in community, like all those places a man shows up. But if we can get him to drift, or we can put him on social media and check him out, etc.,
Mhm.
man, shit does not get done.
No, no, not at all. And that's just part of the armor, of discernment and checking ourselves. And like you're saying, having mentors or having people around us that we can do a checkup from the neck up, and take action on the things that we need.
Right. Where do you go? And maybe putting you on the spot, but a key component to, I think, success as a man, right,
Mhm.
in life is brotherhood, right?
Yep.
Having men around you. I love recently there was a movie on Netflix a couple of years ago called The Forge, which really kind of showed that.
Okay.
But what can you maybe talk about that effect in your life of having the right men around you?
Yeah, for sure. So when in 2013 is when I accepted Christ in my life. And I had just so much going on. And there again, it's everything was provided for me. So I accepted Christ in my life. It was like a men's church weekend, and went to this deal. Just bawled my eyes out, man. I'm sure they had to like buy new carpet. I was crying so much just because at the time I realized that I didn't have to carry all this myself. I did have a partner, and so I came home on that Sunday, and that Monday I called an old family friend that my dad had worked for their family back in, I think, the 60s and 70s. And so again, it was, who do you listen to? And it's people that have the results that you desire in life,
Mm.
because there is so much information out there, the Lambos, the jets, the whatever, all the fake stuff. But who do you listen to? So this family that my dad worked for, they had a really good family structure. Everybody vacationed together, they did stuff together, cousins, everybody. They're very financially, they're wealthy. Their faith life is really strong. And so I called them up, and then it so happened that they were part of their business was I don't know if you want to call it a leadership brand, more or less. And so it was really awesome that on a Saturday, I accepted Christ in my life. And on Monday, I made a phone call. And middle of that week, I was tapped into mentorship and leadership, because just like the Bible says, when you can't pour new wine into old wineskins, or nature will say this, science will say this, and the Bible will say this: nothing in nature can exist in a vacuum. It has to be filled with something. And so going back to being intentional, I knew I had to be intentional and equip myself and fill that void with new information. So it, for the last, I don't know, several years, I haven't really plugged into too much. I've in some leadership programs like Arate, which is Andy Frisella
Yeah.
from First Form Supplement Company. I'm a part of that community. I got it. He has another deal called the Operator Standard, part of that. So, a lot of that, I like all of us, I am my own hardest critic and judge. So I can got to a point in life to where I can look at my results, look at what's going on, and then balance that to what somebody that has the results that I want, and either like join their community, or whatever books they might recommend or something, just dive into those books, because they're just a product of the information that they received.
Right.
So that information is out there. I can just go find it and start consuming it.
It's funny, right? You and I have not met before this podcast, and yet, I mean, 75 hard for me was a game changer. I heard Andy's MFCEO podcast. He talked about 75 hard in 2019, and that's how I discovered him and went through that. And then I remember him and Ed Milet launching Arate and all of that. So it's just funny, right? Like success leaves clues, right? It's the same resources, or you find this, these same resources. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and if you ever get the chance to go to First Forum HQ, man, it is amazing. It's incredible.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Very, very, very cool. Well, man, we could go on and on. It has been, I just love, I love having you here. One thing I want to kind of wrap up with is, you talk about leaving a legacy behind, not just with your business, but in faith, as a person of faith and action. We kind of talked about that, right? Passing it and leaving an inheritance. Maybe kind of wrap us up with that idea. Tell me, like, how do you look at get shit done and really what you're doing out there, and what, passing that on, or what's the bigger mission for you moving forward?
It's something, it's getting feedback. So I asked my son one day, and I asked him, and I said, Frank, what is one thing that you've learned from me? And I challenge men out there, if you have kids that are teenagers, or, even in their older 20s, 30s, whatever it may be, if you're man enough, ask your kids that. And what my son immediately, without pause, he said, no matter what, Dad, we figure it out. So to me, I'm not worried about what other people may think of my legacy, or what people may think of me. I just live in the present every damn day, and try to do something worth remembering. And with whether it's the coffee, or whatever it might be, whether it's like my father-in-law, he's an oil man, and in order to drill an oil well, you have to plot it, you have to find it, you have to drill it, and you have to put the equipment on it. So it's not built in a day. And just keep that in mind, is that as you're moving forward, that I'm my goals are for the future, but I'm living for today. And just keep equipping yourself and taking action on the knowledge that you gain, and the legacy will sort itself out. But you just have to live it, You can't talk about it. You can't necessarily just post about it. You have to go out and get the bumps and the bruises. And I've got like one particular buddy of mine. The other day he posted up about a pic. He found himself in like the AMA, the Motocross Hall of Fame, or some deal. He found himself in a race registry or something, and he was proud that his kids will see that. And so I thought, I raced motocross. I was like, well, maybe if I look Google my name in motocross, and so I texted him. Was like, well, son of a gun, man, my name's not even in there. And he's like, what are you talking about, fool? He's like, you've done so much stuff that people know it and recognize it. This is my one thing, because he hasn't had that intentionality to fulfill his potential in other areas of life.
So good, man. Just your thoughts on legacy. Legacy. Stop trying to build a legacy. Legacy is built one right living step day at a time. Right.
Mhm.
Like, I love that, man. So good. Thank you. For me, it's just the greatest nugget in our time together. So, Frank, how do people find you? I know I'm on your website, so I can put that up. Home of the
Mhm.
Hustle, right? Is
Mhm.
anything else you want to put on here, or is that where the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, that's the best place. And if they do a /podcast, homeofthehustle.com/podcast, we have a little download and a discount on there if you guys feel like supporting us. Other than that, just Frank Sell, SELL. I'm
Hang on
pretty
a sec.
sure.
You said Home of the Hustle /
Podcast.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other was, I'm sorry, I had cut you off.
Yeah, just Frank Sell, SELL.
Just Google you and
yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today. A lot of wisdom, and I'm excited for what you're doing, man. It's I will now have to go shop, get shit done coffee, and get myself some.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to staying in touch too.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you.